Countess Inez Briarton, once overshadowed by her famous husband, Count Ryan Briarton, uncovers the truth. Her husband has been stealing her art and passing it off as his own. She also discovers that her closest friend, Lady Charlotte Jason, is involved in a betrayal that has left her heartbroken. Determined to reclaim her legacy, Inez confides in Duke Sussex, revealing the hidden truth behind the masterpieces that Ryan has claimed as his own. As she confronts the injustices in her life, Inez takes bold steps to expose the lies that have tainted her name and her art, ready to stand tall and fight for justice. This is not just a story of art, but of courage, betrayal, and a woman who dared to be seen. Lady Briarton, the most talked-about name in the kingdom. Her voice echoed through the grand halls of the Duke of Sussex's newspaper, Elton G., the most powerful mouthpiece in the land. One day, she walked in, her eyes pleading. "Please, write about my husband," she asked softly, her voice trembling. "I want to find him again. I want to find my life." She stood there desperate, clinging to a thread of hope. She remembered a time when she was young, a beautiful girl, delicate, like a blooming flower. That was before tragedy struck. She had lost her parents in a carriage accident, becoming the sole heir of the exiled Earl Briarton family. Back then, Ryan had been her only light. She remembered the moment he knelt before her, surrounded by witnesses, offering a ring. "I want to be by your side for the rest of my life, Lady Briarton," he said with conviction. She thought, to be able to live on with Ryan. "I'll endure anything." Gossip swirled around them, but she ignored it. If her husband needed to preserve his name, she'd let her paintings bear his. Maybe then. He'll keep his honor, she told herself, wiping the paint from her hands. All she wanted was to see him happy. During tea with her friend Charlotte, the tension grew heavy. "Does the Count often sleep outside?" Charlotte asked, sipping casually. "He says he's at the workshop," Inez replied quietly. "But he often comes home drunk." She hesitated. "Not long ago, he came back smelling like another woman." She remembered confronting him. Ryan said it was nothing, she thought, heart aching. "Inez, wasn't that your fault?" Charlotte asked. "What do you mean?" She replied, startled. "Well, you tend to control your man," Charlotte said bluntly. "Then what should I do?" "If I were you, I'd leave the Count alone," Charlotte said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Leave Ryan," Inez whispered. "If you give him space, it might help in the long run," Charlotte added cheerfully. But behind her smile hid jealousy and something darker. She reached across the table, holding Inez's hand gently. "Listen to me, Inez. Just want you to be happy." Inez believed her. "Thank you, Charlotte. My dear friend." Then came the rainy day, their wedding anniversary. 3 days had passed since Ryan last came home. He must be busy with work, she thought. Still, today is special. I'll surprise him. With a heart full of hope, she prepared a basket with food and drinks and walked toward his office. But as she neared the door, she heard voices from inside, Ryan's voice. "What if Inez suddenly shows up? You'll be on my side, right?" Charlotte answered, her voice wrapped in seduction. "Of course." Then came Ryan's words that shattered her world. "I love you, Charlotte." The basket slipped from her hands. Everything crashed to the floor as her worst fears were confirmed. After that day, Ryan changed completely. His tone softened, his eyes filled with regret. "I'm sorry," he told her gently, holding her hands. "I'll end it with Charlotte, I promise." He hugged her tightly. "You're the only one I love, Inez." And she forgave him. She tried harder, worked herself to the bone, all just to be seen by him. Until one day, he looked at her and said, "Good job, Inez. So now I won't send you away." Panic took over her. Send me away, she thought. No, I can't go. I have to run. She fled the mansion in fear. I can't be locked in a mental hospital. She ran through the rain, faster than ever before, until a carriage struck her down. Lying on the ground, her body broken, her thoughts drifted to everything she had sacrificed. I lived my life for my husband. I gave him everything: honor, title, love, my whole soul. And in her final breath, one thought echoed loudest of all those things I gave, I want them back. A scream broke through the silence. "Lady," someone cried. Inez jolted awake, her body drenched in sweat, her chest rising and falling with panic. The memories of her death still haunted her mind. "Oh God, you're burning up," her maid Mary exclaimed in worry. "Were you having a nightmare?" Inez blinked, disoriented. "Mary? This is my room?" she thought, trying to make sense of everything. Was it all a dream? A nightmare? "You must be exhausted," Mary continued. "And on such a big day, too." "A big day?" Inez asked, confused. "Today is your wedding anniversary." Her heart stopped. "What? Wait, wedding anniversary? What's the date today?" she asked abruptly, her voice louder than intended. Mary, startled by her reaction, answered nervously. "It's May 28th, 1825. Inez froze. Her eyes widened as reality hit her like a wave. I came back in time. I've returned to the most cursed day of my life. 3 years ago, the day she had discovered her husband in the arms of her best friend. Even after getting dressed, the weight of the truth wouldn't leave her. She couldn't shake the dread from her chest. "Lady," Mary said gently, "maybe you should rest a bit longer." But Inez, lost in thought, didn't reply. When they reached the dining room, she looked at the spread before her and asked, "What's all this food for?" Mary blinked, puzzled. "This is the dinner you prepared yourself?" Inez frowned. "I see. Mary, can you leave me alone for now?" "Are you feeling unwell?" the maid asked, concerned. "I'm fine," Inez answered automatically. As Mary left the room, Inez stared at the table. Yes, I remember now. The red wine, the lavish meal, the decorations. It was all for Ryan. A fire lit in her chest. Anger. Grief. Humiliation, she snapped. With trembling hands, she crashed everything to the ground. Plates shattered. Wine spilled like blood across the floor. Every single time. What the hell? The husband I loved with all my heart, and my best friend since childhood. They were my world. But they never loved me back. Stupid Inez Briarton. My love for Ryan was pathetic. A disgrace to the friendship I once had with Charlotte. And the fool I was in the past. She was just so pitiful, she cried, her tears falling harder than the storm that once ended her life. A few days passed, still no sign of Ryan at the townhouse. But Inez no longer waited. I've been hurt enough, she thought. Now, I have things to do. First and foremost, she would take back everything Ryan had stolen from her. The best path? Divorce. But in the Lancaster kingdom, divorcing as a noblewoman wasn't simple. According to the law, a convincing reason had to be presented before the royal court, with the king himself presiding. Yet the problem was clear. In a kingdom ruled by male pride, society favored men who flaunted authority and expected women to stay silent, caring only for home and husband. Unless there's a scandal, she realized. A scandal big enough to shake the court. That's when an idea came to her. She glanced at one of her paintings. Ryan's fame as an artist was built entirely on her work, pieces she had allowed him to sign as his own. Ryan is nothing more than an amateur, she thought. If I expose the truth, if I reveal to the world that I am the true artist. Just then, the butler entered. "Excuse me, my lady, I've brought the newspaper." She took it. Elton, the kingdom's largest and most influential publication. If I could just get Elton to publish the truth. But before she could plan further, Ryan walked in. "What? You're at home?" he sneered. "Not even coming to greet your husband anymore?" He yanked the paper from her hands. "What's this? Reading nonsense again?" Inez stared at him coldly. "How ridiculous, coming from you. You think I'm the one enjoying myself? Aren't we both the same?" Ryan stared, confused. "She's acting different," he thought. "What are you saying?" he asked. "I'm sick," she said calmly. "Your wife was bedridden," she continued. "And you never even visited me once." "That's because I had urgent business," he snapped. Her eyes moved to the mark on his neck. "Some outside business, huh?" she said softly. "Then what is that, Ryan?" He cleared his throat quickly, changing the subject. "I have something to discuss with you. Did you know the New Year's prom will be held at the castle this year?" She said. "Nothing. Listening. It's an annual gathering where royalty welcomes the new year. But this year will be special. Even the Duke of Sussex will attend." Her eyes sharpened. "The Duke of Sussex. Lord Sussex himself. The king's younger brother. The owner of Elton. He has a hobby of supporting talented artists," Ryan said proudly. "Those who receive his attention become famous overnight. This is my chance to shine as the greatest painter in the country." He moved closer. "So make sure you look presentable for the ball." But Inez wasn't listening to him anymore. Lord Sussex. If I can meet him at the ball, she thought with fierce determination, and convince him to publish the truth in Elton, then maybe, just maybe, I can finally divorce him. A few days had passed. Mary, ever observant, couldn't help but worry. Why does my lady seem so different lately? She wondered. She used to busy herself every day, cooking, painting, always eager to show the master her work. But now, she barely lifts a finger. What has happened to her? As Mary stood in thought, another maid approached in a hurry. "Mrs. Mary," she said, "Baron Jason's daughter is on the first floor." Mary's eyes lit up. "Really?" she replied, hopeful. Maybe a friendly conversation will lift her spirit, she thought. If she can talk freely with a close friend, perhaps she'll smile again. Filled with cautious optimism, Mary entered the room. "My lady," she said with cheer, "Baron Jason's daughter has arrived." But Inez didn't react the way Mary expected. She turned slowly, her expression dark and her tone sharp. "What?" Mary froze. "What? She came without making an appointment?" Inez asked, her voice laced with irritation. "Yes, as usual," Mary replied quietly. "I know," Inez said coldly. "Charlotte always comes and goes from this mansion as if it's her own. She never contacts me in advance. Honestly, how low must she think of me?" Without waiting for a reply, Inez descended the stairs to meet her friend. Charlotte beamed with delight. "Inez, I heard you were feeling unwell, so of course, I had to visit. Oh my, you look far too healthy for someone who's sick. Could it be that you're just overreacting?" Before Inez could answer, Charlotte continued excitedly. "By the way, the New Year's prom is just around the corner. You'll be attending, right?" Inez hesitated. Great," Charlotte said brightly. "Actually, I don't have a wagon to go to the prom, so could I ride with you?" We're friends, aren't we? Mary, standing nearby, was startled. She wants to ride alongside a married couple? That's not something a lady should request, even if they're close friends. Inez stared at Charlotte's flawless smile. She looked so innocent. Yet this is the woman who conspired with Ryan to lock me away in a mental hospital. How naive I was. The old me knew nothing. Let me go, Inez said with a cutting edge in her voice. Charlotte blinked in shock. Inez? Touching others so casually, don't you know how rude that is, even between friends? Her voice was firm and emotionless. I apologize, but I have a terrible headache today. Please leave. Charlotte reached for her again, distressed. Wait, Inez? But Inez was already closing the door. Goodbye, she thought. My only friend. Elsewhere, in the heart of the Lancaster kingdom, the king sat in his study, going through documents with practiced ease. Good job, he said, glancing up. I'm glad you've agreed to attend the prom, Duke Sussex. The Duke stood silently, his face unreadable. The king raised a brow. Loosen up, would you? Are you really that displeased about being forced to attend a party? Your Majesty, the Duke replied dryly. What exactly are you planning? Planning? The king smirked. Nothing at all, just hoping you might meet a charming lady at the ball. I've already agreed to attend, the Duke replied. Now if you'll excuse me. As he turned to leave, the king called after him. Don't forget your best suit. Who knows? You might meet someone interesting. The Duke didn't respond, but as he walked out of the palace, he muttered under his breath, someone I'll be interested in. Not funny at all. On the day of the grand prom, Ryan stood at the entrance, clearly irritated. What's taking you so long? He snapped, until he saw her. Inez appeared, dressed in an absolutely stunning gown. His eyes widened in disbelief. Are you insane? He barked. What are you wearing? Completely calm, she replied, without hesitation. What? You told me to pay attention to how I look for this event. I meant, help me look good, not steal the spotlight, he hissed. Inez stepped closer, gently grabbing his expensive tie. Really now? You're out here in a top-notch suit, she said smoothly. While those disowned are expected to show up in rags, isn't that more embarrassing? Ryan stared at her with unfamiliar eyes, confused by her composure. The earrings. Mother left me, Inez thought. If I hadn't returned to the past, then along with the Countess title, even these would still belong to Charlotte. No, I will never live like I did before. Later at the prom, a voice called out. Oh dear Countess Briarton, said Baroness Wickham, clearly impressed. Baroness Wickham, Inez replied with a polite smile. It's been a long time. You're stunning today, the Baroness added warmly. While they exchanged greetings, whispers rippled through the room. Some women, watching from a distance, began to gossip. Why is she dressed so gorgeously like that? One said. I heard the Count neglects her. Maybe he's letting her do as she pleases. Charlotte's expression twisted with irritation as she overheard them. She pushed forward. Inez! Inez turned. Charlotte. Charlotte looked her over, clearly displeased. What is that? That style, she scoffed. I've told you, you look better in simpler clothes, more modest, less extravagant. Inez looked at her calmly, but her thoughts were sharp. Liar. Charlotte can't stand it when I stand out more than she does. That's why she says things like this every time. With a small smile, Inez replied, Well, being pretty in other people's eyes doesn't matter to me. I wear what I like. And seeing me in this dress, the Baroness just gave me a lovely compliment. Charlotte froze. What? She thought in disbelief. She used to listen to everything I said. Inez tilted her head playfully. Funny. I never once received praise while following your fashion advice. I suppose my sense of style might just be better than yours. Charlotte clenched her jaw, clearly insulted. But before she could respond, a sharp voice broke in. What do you mean by that? It was Ryan. The Count, Charlotte said quickly, smiling as he approached. Lady Jason was only giving her opinion, Ryan said firmly. Is it really necessary to humiliate her in public like this? Inez remained expressionless, unfazed by his attempt to defend Charlotte. Charlotte, feigning offense, added, It's really such a shame to have a close friend like you. This is the only way we can save face. Meanwhile, Ryan thought smugly, a good opportunity. She's been acting high and mighty lately. If I can embarrass her here, she might finally calm down. He stepped closer. Anyway, But before he could continue, a voice cut through the tension. It seems I've arrived at a bad time. Everyone turned in surprise. Standing at the entrance was none other than Duke Sussex. Even Ryan paled. Of all people, this was the one he most wanted to impress. Duke Sussex, he stammered. Inez, too, stared in surprise. That person is Sussex, the Duke. The Duke spoke calmly. I heard that Count Briarton's recent paintings were quite well received, so I came to offer my regards. But witnessing emotions running high in a setting like this doesn't seem appropriate. Ryan faltered. Duke, this isn't what it looks like. But the Duke raised a hand, cutting him off. If I'm not mistaken, the Count's rise in the art world began only after his marriage, correct? He looked at Ryan with a piercing gaze. Since then, you've had the chance to showcase your talents to the world. And beside you, your wife, always offering silent support. Then offered a polite smile. Today is a celebration. Let's leave this unpleasant moment behind. Enjoy the party with your stunning partner, Count Briarton. He gave a courteous nod. Now, please excuse me. I hope you'll have a wonderful evening. With that, he turned and walked away. Ryan was left speechless, his face twisted in frustration. Inez, however, stood still, her heart pounding. The Duke, she thought. How? This is the first time someone truly understood my efforts. I might cry. Out on the terrace, Duke Sussex leaned against the railing, staring out over the city lights below. I only came tonight out of courtesy, just to make an appearance, he thought. But seeing all those familiar faces, just then, the sound of footsteps behind him broke his thoughts. He turned to see who it was, and froze in surprise. You, Countess Briarton. Inez approached with poise and grace. Greetings again, Duke Sussex. His brow furrowed. For what reason are you here? This may seem sudden, she said softly. But, sir, do you know why my husband never paints portraits of people? The Duke blinked, puzzled. It was a strange question. What do you mean by that? But as he considered it, something clicked. Come to think of it, I've never seen a single portrait by Count Briarton. For such a renowned artist, portrait requests should be constant. Inez met his gaze and calmly revealed, It's because he can't paint them. She paused. My husband. The paintings known under the name Count Ryan Briarton are actually not his own. The Duke's eyes narrowed. Her words triggered a memory, an art exhibition from months ago. He had stood before a breathtaking canvas, struck speechless. This is Count Briarton's newest work, isn't it? Someone had whispered nearby. What a masterpiece. It shook the entire art world. Another guest had turned to him and said, I believe this is your first time seeing his work in person, Duke Sussex? The Duke had nodded, lost in the beauty of the brushstrokes. Yes, it's impossible not to be mesmerized. The rumors must be true. He truly deserves the title, the painter with the hand of God. Now, standing on the terrace, Duke Sussex was stunned. All those paintings weren't his? What exactly are you saying? He asked carefully. Inez took a breath and answered, steady and clear. Ryan used other people's paintings and claimed them as his own. The real artist was someone else. The Duke's voice grew cold. If what you say is true, this is a disgrace to the entire art world of Lancaster. He paused, then asked the question that mattered most. Those words, can you prove them? Without hesitation, Inez nodded. I can. She stepped closer, picked up a blank sheet of paper, and took a pen. The Duke watched, eyes narrowed. Is she going to paint? Within minutes, her hand glided smoothly across the page. Each movement was fluid, confident, like water flowing downstream. These strokes, so precise, the Duke thought. This isn't someone mimicking. This is someone who's been painting her whole life. A short time later, she stopped and handed him the paper. It's done. He looked down and was stunned. It was a perfect likeness. His portrait, full of depth and expression. Inez spoke, quietly. Sir, the person who painted the pictures for Ryan is actually... But the Duke raised a hand to stop her. You don't need to say another word. She looked startled by his sudden interruption. He stepped back and said with certainty, So that's how it is. The real painter, the one robbed of her name and talent by the Count, was you, the Countess Briarton. Inside the Duke's mansion, silence reigned. Duke Sussex sat alone in his study, his thoughts heavy with everything he had learned the night before. If the Countess's words are true, he pondered, this isn't just a personal betrayal. It's a deception that insults the entire kingdom and the art world across the continent. His jaw clenched. In a society where women and commoners rarely have the right to name themselves, he took advantage of Lancaster's conservative atmosphere. How could I not have seen it until now? A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. The butler stepped inside and announced, Your Highness, Countess Briarton has arrived. The Duke straightened in his chair. First, I need to verify the truth myself. Let her in, he said. Inez entered the room with graceful composure. How have you been lately, Your Highness? I'm still fine. What about you? Thanks to your care, I've been quite well, she replied. He gave a small nod. Well then, let's continue the conversation we began the other day. He folded his hands thoughtfully. Thinking back, it's still strange. For most artists, there's no reason to hide their creative process. But if it was the Countess painting instead, it makes sense why the Count would avoid revealing anything. Still, the Count's suspicious behavior alone isn't enough reason for us to work together. If what she says is true, he thought, then sanctions will be inevitable. But Count Briarton comes from a prestigious family. If I help her now, it could be seen as politically unbalanced. Indeed, it may be wiser to refuse. Before he could dwell on it further, Inez spoke with resolve. There's a reason for that, she said. I know you're not the type to help someone without reason, Your Highness. So, I've prepared the benefits you'd receive from helping me. He raised an eyebrow. And what kind of benefits are we speaking about? Inez met his gaze firmly. You are the owner of the Elton newspaper, and a journalist as well. I'll give you exclusive access to the story behind my husband's collapse. His eyes widened in shock. What? She continued, steady and calm. This will be a massive story, a scandal of this size. The only peaceful solution would be for me to quietly confront my husband. But I've removed that option. I intend to go public through the press. The Duke studied her carefully. There must be a reason behind this. What do you want to achieve from your husband's downfall? Her voice lowered, edged with pain. My husband. He loves another woman more than me. That mistress is my former friend, Lady Charlotte Jason. They both chose to betray me and deceive me. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. You may already know, in this country, it's nearly impossible for a woman to win a divorce case, even when there's proof of an affair. I've wasted my entire life, my passion, my art, all tied to the Briarton name. Her voice faltered, but her determination remained unshaken. All of it. I want it back. The Duke looked at her, contemplative. So, that's what she wants. Not just revenge, but the restoration of her name, her property, her dignity. Instead of chasing headlines, perhaps Elton should gather public support for her case. But, will that be all right? He asked gently. She looked surprised. What do you mean? Elton is the most widely read newspaper in the kingdom. Once this scandal is published, Count Briarton, Lady Jason, and even you, Countess, will be the subject of intense public discussion. From an editor's point of view, this story is priceless. But considering everything you've endured, I hesitate. For a moment, Inez was silent. Her heart trembled. From my husband to my best friend, I never once heard a word of concern. This is the first time someone has worried about me so sincerely. With a soft but firm voice, she replied, I've already made up my mind. The Duke nodded. If it's to be reported, I will conduct a full cross-verification of the incident. Thank you, sir. He stood from his seat. Then, only one thing remains. The paintings published under the Count's name. He led her to a private room, filled with artworks. My lady, please, prove that you drew them. He gestured toward a table stacked with canvases. I've kept several of the pieces attributed to the man with the hand of God. You will need to recreate one. Precisely. I understand, she answered. As she sat before the blank canvas, Inez thought to herself, whether it's been just a few days or even 3 years, so much around me has changed. But this feeling, this fire when I touch the brush, has never left me. A quiet smile curved her lips as her fingers began to move. Some time passed. Have you finished drawing yet? The Duke asked suddenly. Startled, she flinched. You've been watching this whole time? My apologies if I frightened you. It's still not quite perfect, she admitted softly. No need to worry, he said, examining the sketch. If anyone doubts you after seeing this, they'd be truly foolish. He met her eyes, his tone firm. I look forward to helping you. Painter with the hand of God, Countess Briarton. That's it for today. If you liked, don't forget to enable the YouTube notification bell and subscribe to follow the next parts. If you want a continuation, mention in comments. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.